cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade. And they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. This is another edition of World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Hem Kaur. And on the show today, in a terror strike in Jammu and Kashmir's Rajouri, 5 army personnel were killed, 3 others injured. This after 2 army vehicles were ambushed. We will get you all the developments on this on the show today.
Also on the show, after a year of strained relations and a halt of military communication channels, top US military officer General Charles Brown spoke with China's General Liu Zhenli. We will get you the key highlights of the first military communication in a year.
Also on the show, we'll be joined by our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who will be getting us the latest from New York. Later on the show, we'll also have with us Alison Lagrange, getting us all the updates from the world of showbiz.
All this and more right here on World DNA in the next 60 minutes. Let's get you started with the headlines.
5 Indian Army soldiers killed in action and 2 injured after heavily armed terrorists ambushed 2 army vehicles in Jammu and Kashmir state's Poonch district. Massive encounter underway.
Prague witnesses deadliest mass shooting in modern Czech history. 24-year-old gunman kills at least 14 people and injures 25 others at Charles University campus.
UN Security Council delays vote on resolution urging scaled-up humanitarian aid access to Gaza for the 4th time after another day of intense negotiations.
Longtime Donald Trump aide and former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani files for bankruptcy just days after being ordered to pay $148 million in defamation case.
Pentagon confirms top US military officer spoke with Chinese counterpart as part of first senior-level military-to-military talks between 2 countries in over a year.
A stoppage time header by Lucas Vazquez earns 10-man Real Madrid a victory at Alaves. The victory take them to the top of the La Liga points table.
A win tonight will send them top. It is another surprising scorer. Sergio Roberto with 2 goals last night. Lucas Vazquez, 2 similar players in terms of...
Our top focus on World DNA this morning. 5 soldiers of the Indian Army have been killed in action while 2 others sustained close to fatal injuries after terrorists ambushed 2 army vehicles in the Poonch region of Jammu and Kashmir on Thursday.
Once again, it's the Poonch region. The bodies of 2 of the killed soldiers were mutilated by the heavily armed terrorists, and the encounter in the area is still underway. Now, The Indian Army has been conducting an operation in and around the area since Wednesday night. The vehicles that were carrying the soldiers to the site of an overnight cordon and search operation came under heavy attack during late afternoon on Thursday. As per the Indian Army, the soldiers and terrorists got into a gunfight post the ambush.
A senior defense spokesperson has revealed that the search operation and mobilization of personnel came over a hard intelligence report about the presence of terrorists in the Dera Ki Gali. This is in the Rajouri district. Now, they came under attack during late afternoon on Thursday, and as per army, the soldiers and terrorists got into a gunfight post this ambush as well. The ambulances and reinforcement from 48 and 43 Rashtriya Rifles were sent to the site, and as per sources, a team of special forces and Huron UAVs were also deployed for this operation.
A senior defense spokesperson has revealed that the search operation and mobilization of personnel came over a hard intelligence report about the presence of terrorists in the Dera Ki Gali area in the Rajouri district. Following the incident, ambulances and reinforcement from 48 and 43 Rashtriya Rifles, as we just mentioned, was sent to the site. And as per sources, a team of special forces and Huron UAVs were also deployed for the operation. Now, the area of the Wele Dera Ki Gali is a densely forested stretch located at the borders of Rajouri and Poonch districts. Now, the region has been a confrontational sector between terrorists and the army for years. However, the situation in the sector was largely stable from 2003 to 2021.
In the last 2 years, at least 35 army personnel have been killed in action in encounters or close combat in Rajouri and Poonch districts. Of the 35, 19 soldiers were killed over the last 8 months. And in the April to May this year, 10 soldiers were killed in twin attacks in Rajouri, Poonch area.
All right, we're now being joined by our correspondent Idris Lone for more on the story. Idris, again, it's the Poonch region, again, it's Rajouri and that entire belt. What more can you tell us about what is happening there as of now?
Well, at the moment, the operation has been started again with the first light. It was halted during the night because it's a dense forest, so security forces halted the operation, but it has started again with the first light today. Security forces believe that there are 2 to 3 militants hiding in the jungles of this area. They had the input 2 days ago about the presence of these militants, after which a cordon and search operation was launched in the area. And yesterday, around 3:45 in the afternoon, when more deployment was being brought into the area, militants started firing towards the security forces, towards one of the vehicles which was carrying the Indian Army soldiers, in which 4 Indian Army soldiers have lost their lives and 2 were injured. Now security forces have brought in more deployment and have cordoned off the whole area, especially where they believe the militants are holed up. But so far, they've not been able to establish the contact. There is no firing going on at the moment, but the search operation continues. Rajouri Poonch area has become a hotbed, especially in the last couple of years. And also because the North Kashmir borders in the Kashmir Valley are now covered with snow, and international border at Jammu becomes one of the areas where more infiltration happens, and that is one of the reasons that we see more militant presence in Rajouri and Poonch areas.
Right, Idris, in fact, I was just going to come to this. You're absolutely right. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, in the last 2 years, at least 35 army personnel have been killed in action in encounters or close combat in Rajouri and Poonch. And as you mentioned as well, the onset of the winter months, that's an especially tense time, and there is usually an uptick in infiltration. What can you tell us about that?
Well, absolutely. Security forces were already on high alert. As I said, as the winter approaches, the Kashmir borders are completely sealed because of the snow. So it becomes extremely difficult for the militants from across the border to cross into the Jammu Kashmir territory. But from the Jammu region, we've seen, especially in the last 2 years, that infiltration bids have increased, and the number of militants, foreign militants in Jammu and Kashmir have mostly infiltrated from that belt. And that is the route, especially Poonch and Rajouri is the route which they take to come into the Kashmir Valley. And their first set of operations that take place are mostly in Rajouri and Poonch area, because security is so tight that sometimes it becomes difficult for these militants to cross over into the Kashmir territory, and then they start their operations in Rajouri and Poonch and areas very close to the international border. And this time also security forces did have an input that there is a recently infiltrated group which is moving around in that area, after which the operation was started. But what we saw yesterday, despite knowing that there are militants in the area, security forces had to bear the loss.
All right, Idris, thank you so much for joining in. And we will, of course, be in touch with you for all the further updates coming in from the operation, which is still going on. In another horrifying incident, a gunman has shot at least 14 people and injured another 25 at a university in Prague.
In what is being seen as the deadliest attack in modern Czech history, the 24-year-old gunman was quote-unquote eliminated following the shooting at Prague's Charles University, and the gunman's body was recovered from the university's vicinity. The shooting took place at the university's Faculty of Arts building. The government has declared a day of mourning across the Central European country for December 23rd to remember the victims.
Současně vyzýváme všechny občany České republiky, aby 23. prosince v den státního smutku ve 12 hodin uctili památky oběti minutou ticha. K tomu jsme požádali také hejtmany, primátory, starosty, vedení obcí, orgány státní správy, aby zajistili vhodný postup podle tohoto usnesení a v souladu s tím, že je vyhlášen státní smutek, a také jsme požádali ty, kteří to mají v kompetenci, aby se ve 12 hodin také rozezněly zvony na celém území České republiky, abychom těmito všemi činy uctili památku obětí.
Police have also discovered a large arsenal of weapons at the downtown Prague Charles University building. To break it down for you viewers, where the shooting took place, shortly after that, the shooter's father was found dead and the shooter himself was found dead as well. Now, it is unconfirmed whether the gunman took his own life after the incident or it was some other cause of his death. According to the police, the gunman was a legal holder of several firearms.
A video that has been making rounds on social media shows heavy police presence in the city centre as police seals off Jean Plage Square and Charles University.
Residents are completely shaken after the mass shooting. Some of the eyewitnesses have called this incident as unprecedented. They've never seen something like this before.
Něco, co je naprosto jako bezprecedentní a myslím, že všichni jsou z toho úplně konsternovaní a pro nás je to jako ještě o to víc, že tady jsme napojení na tu čtvrť a do toho vlastně jsme absolventi filozofické fakulty. Chodíme tam občas, takže kdyby člověk byl v nesprávné chvíli na nesprávném místě, tak by se to mohlo týkat nás daleko víc, než jenom to, že se to stalo za pár metrů od nás. No.
Now, fighting has escalated in Gaza during the last 24 hours as well. The area saw some of the heaviest bombardment.
Well, Hamas is still being able to launch salvos of rockets towards Israel as well. Escalation is taking place amid some serious efforts towards a renewed ceasefire deal. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh was in Egypt for a second day for negotiations on Thursday. However, Hamas and other Palestinian factions have taken a unanimous approach that another hostage and prisoner exchange would take place only when the fighting stops in Gaza.
Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen confirmed negotiations on a hostage release were ongoing but declined to provide details. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has once again said that Israel will fight till victory.
היא מאוד פשוטה, להיכנע או למות. ולא תהיה להם שום ברירה אחרת.
Now, Israel says it has destroyed a strategic terror tunnel network in central Gaza City. The Israeli army has released a video showing a tunnel being blown up by its forces. It said the network of tunnels was destroyed in a controlled manner.
More Israeli army footage from northern Gaza shows troops engaging suspected militants in a Shajia neighborhood of Gaza City. After days of intense fighting here, the army says it has established operational control over the neighborhood.
Now, as per IDF, in Jabalia, the soldiers enabled the orderly evacuation of the civilian population from a school complex, and that ground troops conducted searches in a school and located numerous weapons there as well.
On the other hand, Hamas says that an Israeli strike killed the head of the Palestinian side of the newly opened Kerem Shalom border crossing on Thursday, along with 3 more people. After weeks of pressure, Israel approved the temporary reopening of Kerem Shalom on December 15th to enable direct aid deliveries to Gaza rather than through the Rafah crossing from Egypt. Israeli officials have not yet commented on the accusations.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Office has said that it received reports that Israeli troops summarily killed at least 11 unarmed Palestinians in Gaza. Of course, these are recent reports. Now, it said that the incident raises alarm about the possible commission of a war crime.
Israeli army claims that they have killed 2,000 militants in Gaza this month. Hamas says fighting has killed over 20,000 Palestinians so far. Israeli strikes have been hitting civilian areas in Gaza, and Gaza hospitals are now overwhelmed.
These are the visuals from Rafah in southern Gaza. Now, this right here is the moment which was captured on camera when a journalist reporting live, and he was just meters away from the scene of an airstrike hitting several buildings right behind him. He ducked as soon as he heard the rocket coming in, and the entire explosion was caught on camera. This is close to a hospital in the area. The journalist then took cover while the cameraman filmed the entire situation.
All this is happening while several leaders are engaging in talks for a respite in this war. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron is in Egypt, where he repeated his call for a sustainable ceasefire where Hamas is no longer able to threaten Israel.
The French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Jordan to discuss humanitarian and medical aid to Gaza with King Abdullah, while the UAE Foreign Minister met a senior Palestinian Authority official in Abu Dhabi, where they discussed international efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza.
Meanwhile, the Pentagon says more than 20 countries have now joined the US-led coalition to protect Red Sea shipping from attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels.
All right, Rudy Giuliani has filed for bankruptcy just days after being ordered to pay $148 million in damages for defaming 2 Georgia poll workers.
Now, Giuliani was known as America's mayor for his leadership of New York after the September 11, 2001 attacks. Faces a crush of debt stemming from his work as a lawyer on Trump's behalf. He also faces criminal charges in Georgia.
Giuliani listed assets of between $1 million and $10 million and liabilities between $100 million and $500 million. A spokesperson for Giuliani, who no longer works as Trump's lawyer, said the bankruptcy filing will give him time to appeal the $148 million penalty. The spokesperson added that the filing would ensure that other creditors are treated fairly. U.S. bankruptcy proceedings can enable people and companies to wipe away or reorganize their debts. Giuliani's filing will pause all of the pending civil lawsuits against him. However, it may not allow him to duck the money he owes the election workers. Judges have ruled that defamation penalties cannot be discharged if a debtor has engaged in willful and malicious conduct.
Right there isn't much I can say. The trial is going on. You heard one side. Stay tuned for my testimony. It'll be under oath. Like Russian collusion, like being accused of being a Russian pawn by President Biden.
Two former election workers, Wandrea Shea Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, face threats after Giuliani falsely claimed that they were engaged in voting fraud. Giuliani has repeated those claims following the December 15th verdict, even though he admitted they were defamatory, prompting the two workers to file a second lawsuit. A federal judge ruled Giuliani must immediately begin paying the two women, concluding that there was a risk he may attempt to conceal his assets. A lawyer for the two women said bankruptcy would not discharge his debt to them.
He called for trial by combat at a rally for Trump supporters on the 6th of January 2021, and that happened shortly before thousands of these people they attacked the U.S. Capitol in an effort to prevent Congress from certifying Trump's defeat. Giuliani faces criminal charges of election subversion in Georgia, along with Trump and more than a dozen other co-defendants. He has pleaded not guilty. His law license has been suspended in New York, and he faces disbarment in Washington.
Giuliani listed President Joe Biden's son Hunter Biden and a former employee, Noel Dunphy, as creditors on the bankruptcy filing. Hunter Biden has sued Giuliani for violating his privacy over data allegedly taken from his laptop. Dunphy has sued him for sexual assault, harassment and wage theft. Giuliani has denied the allegations. Dunphy's lawyer said that they would not be deterred from pursuing the case.
Other creditors include Smartmatic and an employee of Dominion Voting Systems. He faces lawsuits for claiming both voting machine companies flipped votes from Trump to Biden in the 2020 election. Giuliani also said that he owed nearly $1 million to the U.S. and New York state governments and nearly $2 million in legal fee. Two law firms that formerly represented him have sued for unpaid bills as well. Trump, meanwhile, fears that more courts and election officials will follow in the footsteps of the Colorado Supreme Court and exclude him from his must-win states.
Now for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
The bankruptcy filing comes as former New York mayor and the lawyer of former President Donald Trump is drowning in debt due to multiple legal cases, most notably that $148 million he's been ordered to pay for defaming two Georgia election workers. Court filings show that he owes upwards of 49 creditors. A spokesman for Rudy Giuliani said that this bankruptcy claim shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, considering the fact that it's very difficult to think Rudy Giuliani could pay such high fines and penalties. Filing bankruptcy will give Giuliani an opportunity to appeal and also make his finances transparent in the presence of a bankruptcy court. However, the appeal or the bankruptcy, for that matter, will not put him off the hook, basically, for paying that $148 million to those two Georgia election workers. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
A delegation of top U.S. officials is expected to visit Mexico soon as negotiations over how to enforce immigration rules at the two countries' shared border continue on Capitol Hill.
Now, the upcoming visit to Mexico comes amid controversy over the closure of two rail crossings in Texas earlier this week. U.S. official has said that the trip would likely take place on the 23rd of December if finalized. Republican and Democratic lawmakers are debating border policy changes as part of a larger conversation over U.S. assistance for Ukraine and Israel.
U.S. officials said the personnel needed to be redeployed to handle high numbers of migrants illegally crossing the border. President Joe Biden spoke with Mexican president. He wrote on his social media platform X account, and I quote here, "I spoke with President Lopez Obrador of Mexico regarding efforts to manage migration in the Western Hemisphere. More enforcement actions are urgently needed to reopen key ports of entry across our shared border. Our teams will convene in the coming days to further actions."
The Mexican Employers Association described the closure of rail crossings into Eagle Pass in El Paso, Texas, as a failure of migration policy. Mexican businesses warned that the closings are hampering trade. U.S. Customs and Border Protection said that the decision was made in order to redirect personnel to assist the U.S. Border Patrol with taking migrants into custody. The U.S. government wants Mexico to crack down on migrants riding rail cars to the U.S. border. Migrants often ride freight trains through Mexico, hopping off just before entering the United States. And with that, it's now time for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Of course, this is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. When we come back, UNICEF has warned that the escalation in fighting in Sudan's Al Jazeera state has reportedly forced at least 150,000 children from their homes in less than a week. We'll get you all the details on that.
Also on the other side, in a world where technology is advancing at an unprecedented pace, it seems fear of AI taking over human jobs is at an all-time high. More details on the other side. Do stay tuned.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas. We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came.
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation.
You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered AutoGPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure in the end of 24.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us.
All right, let's get you started with the headlines that we're tracking for you at this hour. This is, of course, World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest.
Five Indian Army soldiers killed in action and 2 injured after heavily armed terrorists ambushed 2 army vehicles in Jammu and Kashmir state's Poonch district. Massive encounter underway.
Prague witnesses deadliest mass shooting in modern Czech history. 24-year-old gunman kills at least 14 people and injures 25 others at Charles University campus.
UN Security Council delays vote on resolution urging scaled-up humanitarian aid access to Gaza for the 4th time after another day of intense negotiations.
Long-time Donald Trump aide and former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani files for bankruptcy just days after being ordered to pay $148 million in defamation case.
Pentagon confirms top US military officer spoke with Chinese counterpart as part of first senior-level military-to-military talks between 2 countries in more than 1 year.
A stoppage time header by Lucas Vazquez helps 10-man Real Madrid beat Alaves. The win takes them back to the top of the table in La Liga.
A win tonight will send them top. It is another surprising scorer. Sergio Roberto with 2 goals.
Now, a missing Indian student's body has been recovered from a lake in a Canary Wharf area in East London. The UK Metropolitan Police is yet to find out about the last whereabouts of the 23-year-old Gurushaman Singh Bhatia.
Bhatia was reported missing on the 14th of December after a night out with his friends. The police had earlier issued requests to the people in the Marsh Wall area to help them trace Bhatia's movements before his disappearance. Now, in efforts to piece together his disappearance, the police is still sifting through the CCTV footage of the area.
As per the police, the formal identification of the body is not over yet. However, the family of the student has been informed. Gurushaman Singh Bhatia was pursuing a Masters of Science degree in Digital Finance from Loughborough University.
The case of his disappearance was brought to the notice of India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar by Manjinder Singh Sirsa, the National Secretary of India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. Of course, here I'm quoting, deeply saddened to hear about the passing of G.S. Bhatia, a university student who was missing since December 15th. Our thoughts are with the family and friends during this difficult time. May Vaheguru give strength to his parents mourning this profound loss. Sirsa said this in a social media post. The ongoing fighting between Sudan's military and the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, commonly known as the RSF, has forced up to 300,000 people to flee their homes in a province that had been a safe haven for displaced families in the war-torn country.
It is the Jazeera province, known as Sudan's breadbasket. It was home to 6 million people. Since the war, about 500,000 displaced fled to the province for safety. But now the fighting has spread to this province as well. Earlier this month, the Rapid Support Forces attacked the city of Wad Madani in the province. The RSF said that it took over Wad Madani earlier this week, and the military said that its troops withdrew from the city. The army has launched an investigation to examine the circumstances surrounding the withdrawal.
The UN agency International Organization for Migration said that around 300,000 people have now fled the province. Many of these reportedly fled on foot to safer areas. The World Food Programme has announced that it has temporarily halted food assistance in some parts of the province. It described it as a major setback to humanitarian efforts.
Sudan's war began in mid-April after months of tensions between military chief and RSF commander. Both generals led a military coup in October 2021 that derailed Sudan's short-lived transition to democracy. The latest conflict in the northeastern African nation has killed up to 9,000 people as of October, according to the United Nations. However, activists and doctors groups say the actual toll is much higher, while more than 7 million people have been reportedly displaced so far. Shifting our focus now, Thailand, it's edging closer to legalizing same-sex marriage.
Lawmakers have overwhelmingly passed 4 draft bills on same-sex marriage in their first reading. If enacted, Thailand would become the first country in Southeast Asia to recognize same-sex marriage.
Now, the draft legislation has received overwhelming support in the parliament, with over 360 votes in favour and only 10 against it. The legislation aims to amend the marriage law to use gender-neutral terms. This will allow Thais to marry without restrictions on sex or gender. The change will also grant adoption and inheritance rights to couples.
Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin has welcomed the vote by saying, and I quote here, "We are finally on the road to bridging the gap to equal rights for all." The 4 bills debated in the parliament include one tabled by the new government, another by civil society groups, and 2 by the opposition Move Forward and Democrat parties. Similar proposals were also given initial proposal by Parliament in 2022. However, the law did not progress because the House was dissolved for a general election. Now, Thailand is home to one of Asia's most open and visible LGBTQ communities. This law reflects the government's commitment to improving human rights and allowing everyone the right to build a family without any limitations.
Now, China's economic struggles post-pandemic are creating ripples globally, and its deflation dip in 2023 carries significant implications for the global economy.
Unlike other economies grappling with inflation, China is facing intensified deflation risks. But how does this affect you, the global consumer? Take a look at this next report to find out.
The deflationary trend in China is impacting global disinflation efforts in a positive way in the short term. Falling export prices have translated into lower import costs for countries like the US in 2023. But China's role in global goods disinflation is more crucial now than ever. China experienced a unique scenario where its lockdown coincided with a surge in global goods demand, creating a negative supply shock. As China reopened in 2023, the rest of the world was slowing down. leading to excess supply, and that pushed China's domestic and export prices into deflation. Export prices from China plummeted significantly with an 18% annual rate decline between May and July this year. This reduction, spanning processed raw materials to lower-end consumer goods, is impacting major trading partners. The depreciation of the Chinese yuan over the past year is worsening China's disinflationary impact on global import prices. As most of China's goods trade is in US dollars, the appreciation of major currencies against the yuan is further driving down import prices, particularly in Europe. This deflationary trend is expected to persist through the end of the year. This is according to a report by JP Morgan. That means China's disinflation isn't just affecting China's domestic pricing environment, but also global core goods inflation. While that may be a good thing for importers in the short term, the fall in consumer sentiment could have wide-ranging implications, like profit potential of firms banking on China, employment, and overall economic health in the world's largest exporter of goods. The report by JP Morgan thus emphasizes the need for a more substantial policy response from China to address the imbalance between domestic supply and demand conditions. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
In 2024, OPEC, the international group of oil producers, will no longer have one key member here.
Angola said it would leave OPEC, arguing that the group does not serve its interests. Oil prices fell by nearly 2% after the announcement, damaging OPEC's efforts to cut output and boost prices.
Well, just last month, Angola had opposed OPEC's decision to cut its production quota for 2024. That could have curtailed the country's ability to increase its annual oil production. Now, Oil Minister Azevedo said, and I'm quoting here, Angola currently gains nothing by remaining in the organization and, in defense of its interests, decided to leave.
Angola, which joined OPEC in 2007, produces about 1.1 million barrels of oil a day. That's about 4% of the OPEC's total output of 28 million barrels a day. But it has struggled to produce enough oil to meet its quota since 2019. Angola has in fact been unable to reverse falling output since 2008. Oil and gas account for around 90% of Angola's exports, but the government is seeking to diversify its exports after facing COVID-era losses. On to news now from the world of technology. In a world where technology is advancing at an unprecedented pace, it seems fear of AI taking over human jobs is at an all-time high.
It's artificial intelligence, and it comes with a lot of fears and a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. According to the Future of the Skills Landscape 2024 report by Hero Wired, 82% of working professionals think they might lose their jobs to artificial intelligence. The study was conducted on 200,000 individuals. This included students, working professionals, and academicians. Now, the study suggests that emerging technologies like AI is causing job security anxieties among working professionals. One great example here is ChatGPT. The AI tool is threatening to replace a wide range of professionals.
According to the study, around 78% of the respondents were willing to upskill to help them navigate the rapidly changing work landscape. Around 39% of the respondents believe AI and knowledge significantly influenced career growth opportunities. Meanwhile, 43% expressed their dissatisfaction with the lack of adequate AI training provided by their employers. That's not all. Around 43% of working professionals believe one should upskill every 6 months since new technologies are being introduced every month or so.
Meanwhile, 81% respondents who upskilled last year learned about AI through online courses. Although it remains surprisingly hard to know which jobs are likely to go with the arrival of AI, we can be confident here that the scope and character of employment will definitely change. All right, over to sports next. It's cricket, of course, a statement-making maiden ODI century from Sanju Samson and a remarkable performance by Indian bowlers helped the visitors beat South Africa by 78 runs at Boland Park.
With this victory, KL Rahul has become the second Indian captain after Virat Kohli to win a bilateral ODI series in South Africa. Sent into bat first, India lost both its openers inside the first 10 overs. Rajat Patidar, who had scored a 16-ball 22, was bowled by Nandre Berger, while Sai Sudarshan, who had scored 50s in the first and the second ODI, was missed for 10. India captain KL Rahul also fell cheaply in the 19th over. India was at 101 for 3 when Samson came into bat. Samson, along with Tilak Verma, then steadied the ship for the visitors.
They stitched a solid 116-run stand. Verma fell to Keshav Maharaj for 52 soon after hitting his maiden ODI 50. Samson kept India's score moving. He brushed past his previous ODI high score of 86 comfortably and scored his maiden 100 in the 44th over. The Kerala batter, who made his international debut in July 2015, fell for 108. Rinku Singh's 38 runs off 27 balls and Arshdeep Singh's 21 and 11 deliveries helped India post a target of 296 for 8. Now, Baron Hendricks was the pick of the South African bowlers with the figures of 3 for 63. South Africa's chase got off to a solid start. Openers Reza Hendricks and Tony De Zorzi added 59 runs for the first wicket. Arshdeep Singh got the first strike for India, dismissing Hendricks for 19 in the 9th over, while Akshar Patel got rid of Rassie van der Dusen, Zorzi and South African captain Markram. And then added 65 runs for Markram, then added 65 runs for the third wicket of 67 balls. Washington Sundar broke the partnership as he got rid of Markram in the 26th over.
4 overs later, Arshdeep Singh got the big wicket of Zorzi, who was batting at 81. Heinrich Klaassen, Van Mulder and David Miller were all dismissed quickly, leaving the Proteas in all sorts of trouble at 192 for 7 after 38 overs. The hosts were eventually bundled out for 218 runs. In 45.5 overs, Arshdeep Singh was the star with the ball for the men in blue as he picked up 4 wickets by giving away just 30 runs, while Washington Sundar and Avesh Khan picked up 2 wickets each for India.
Singh has been magnificent with the ball as well, picking up 4 for 30, but this is a very important win for India.
Yeah, impressive, clinical once again. We talked about the margin of victories in all 3 of these ODIs. They've been some distance. India winning this one by 78 runs, well led by that man in picture.
Now, just hours after the European Court of Justice gave the European Super League a huge boost, the ESL has announced a revamped plan for the breakaway league. However, most of the continent's big clubs still remain opposed to the project.
Well, on Thursday, the ECJ ruled against UEFA and FIFA in a stinging indictment. The court said UEFA and FIFA abused their dominant positions by forbidding clubs to compete in the proposed league. The ECJ ruled that UEFA and FIFA's blocking of the ESL was unlawful. The A22 Sports Management Company, who are the main backers of the ESL, wasted no time in unveiling fresh plans for the league.
The European Men's Super League will have 64 participating clubs, divided into 3 leagues: Star, Gold and Blue. The Star League consists of 16 clubs divided into 2 groups of 8. It's the same for the Gold League, 16 clubs, 2 groups of 8. The Blue League will have 32 clubs split into 4 groups of 8. During the league stage, clubs play each other within their groups, home and away. That's 14 matches per club each season, 7 at home, 7 away. The top 4 clubs in each group of the Star and Gold Leagues and the top 2 clubs in each group of the Blue League will qualify for the knockout round, starting with the quarter-final. The quarter and semi-final consist of a 2-legged knockout round, home and away. The final will be played on neutral ground.
The new format will rival the existing UEFA tournaments. The main difference from the earlier proposal, which was put forward in 2021, is that there will be an annual promotion and relegation system with no permanent members.
And Star League champions.
Spanish clubs Real Madrid and Barcelona have been the only 2 clubs committed to the project, and they believe the ECJ ruling is great news for European football and will help all clubs become more financially stable.
Today, the decision of the European Union Court of Justice is of great importance for the future of our sport and has proven us right by ruling that in the current status quo of European football, there exists a monopoly that is incompatible with the principles of European law, as we have long maintained.
However, the Premier League has rejected the new proposal, and Manchester United have also come out with a statement saying they remain fully committed to UEFA competitions. The ECJ ruling did not necessarily give the green light to the Super League project, and that is what UEFA President Alexander Kefrin emphasized on in his first reaction to the ruling.
The ECJ certainly has not given the green light nor approved projects like the so-called Super League. We actually welcome the clarity that the ECJ have delivered today, including the endorsement of a pre-authorization system and UEFA's dual role as organizing and authorizing body.
While the ESL will see the verdict as a huge victory, there are plenty of hurdles they need to overcome to make their dream a reality. The main ones being fan opposition and the hesitance of most big European clubs to take on FIFA and UEFA.
All right, next up we get you a glimpse of all that's happening in the world of entertainment, and of course for that we have with us Alison Lagrange. Over to her.
Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange coming to you from Durban, South Africa. First up, let's get you the big stories from the world of entertainment.
The Berlin Film Festival will recognize Martin Scorsese's outsized contributions to cinema with a Lifetime Achievement Award at its 74th iteration this February. Festival organizers, who described the Oscar-winning director's latest film, Killers of the Flower Moon, as one of his greatest achievements, will award Scorsese an honorary Golden Bear on February 28th. With the award, he will join other winners such as Steven Spielberg, Helen Mirren, Ian McKellen, and Dustin Hoffman. Scorsese, who established himself as one of the core filmmakers of the new Hollywood era with the 1976's Taxi Driver, won his first Oscar in 2007 for The Departed after being nominated 7 times for the film industry's top honor. Comedian and actor Joe Coy will be hosting the Golden Globe Awards next year. Coy is a stand-up comedian who has appeared in a few Hollywood productions such as Disney's Haunted Mansion and Adam Sandler's animation Leo. The Golden Globes will take place at the Beverly Hilton on January 7, 2024. K-pop star G-Dragon announced that he would launch an anti-drug foundation to help people after he was cleared of allegations of illegal drug use. G-Dragon, whose given name is Kwon Ji-young, held a news conference in Seoul to officially state their star is free from the drug use charges and announce his future plans. Police had been investigating the singer and rapper and decided not to charge him.
Our next story is for all Hunger Games fans. The new movie from the franchise, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, has crossed the $300 million milestone at the worldwide box office. More details about the franchise in our next report.
Time has come to select one courageous young man and woman for the honor of representing District 12 in the 74th Annual Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games franchise started in 2012. Based on the best-selling novels by Suzanne Collins, the 5-movie series explores a story that spans several decades. The Hunger Games dives deep into the dystopian world of Panem.
Primrose Everdeen.
I volunteer as tribute!
The first Hunger Games film takes place in a country called Panem that is divided into the capital and 12 districts. Citizens of the 12 districts are subjected to an annual tournament to punish them for their rebellion against the capital. Jennifer Lawrence plays the lead role of Katniss Everdeen, who volunteers as a tribute from District 12 in order to save her younger sibling. The story follows her and her fellow tribute Peeta Mellark as they make their way out of the 74th annual Hunger Games under the watchful eyes of President Snow.
This is the 75th year of the Hunger Games.
The second film, Catching Fire, takes a year after the first movie. We see President Snow and the capital trying to quash the uprising caused by Katniss and Peeta's actions. Winners of the previous Hunger Games are forced to take part in the 75th Hunger Games as a result. Katniss and Peeta find themselves back at the arena fighting for their lives once again.
Remember who the real enemy is.
The third film in the franchise follows Katniss as she urges citizens of other districts to help her overthrow President Snow and the capital.
The game is coming to its end.
The rebels are able to overthrow the capital in the second part of Mockingjay. But their victory comes with its own consequences. Katniss loses many of her loved ones, including her sister.
I have summoned you all here for the 10th annual reaping ceremony, in which we choose 2 children from each district to fight to the death in the Hunger Games. From District 12, Lucy Gray Baird.
Come 2023, the prequel to the Hunger Games franchise is set around the 10th annual Hunger Games. It gives the viewers a glimpse at the origin story of the evil President Snow. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes very powerfully shows how evil is born, and for a second even manages